This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some huge updates to share with you. I'll give you the latest on the $2,000 stimulus checks, both on the federal level and the state level. And two new states are sending out more stimulus checks as a recession looms. When it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act, I'm going to play a video clip from Democrat Representative Ro Khanna being grilled on Fox News. You don't want to miss what is said there, and I'll give you some other more important updates as well. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So let's start off with the $2,000 checks that are actually going out to Americans. Minnesota veterans and families could see up to $2,000 bonus checks under state programs. So Minnesota lawmakers have approved $25 million to send out the bonus payments to veterans who served during the global war on terrorism. So basically, veterans who served in a lot of the previous wars could get up to $2,000 if they live in Minnesota. So that's an actual program that has been approved. Money is going out there. When it comes to other state $2,000 stimulus checks, Governor Tom Wolf's plan to send $2,000 checks to Pennsylvanians has stalled. The idea received fierce pushback from Republican lawmakers. Basically, Pennsylvania was sitting on a big pot of money from the American Rescue Plan, and this money to be used for anything the state wants, really. The governor, Tom Wolf, wanted to use it for $2,000 checks. It didn't really get much support from Republicans, therefore it is now stalled, which is kind of the same thing that happened on a federal level. So that's on the state level there, still stalled in the government. But when it comes to a federal level, Bernie Sanders presses Joe Biden on $2,000 checks, stimulus checks. Promises must be kept. This is from a while ago, but should there be $2,000 federal stimulus checks? Is that enough to help you get by, to help you out with your bills, help you out with food, utilities, rent, whatever? Is that enough? Should there be more stimulus checks? Well, if we look at the past recessions, which we may or may not be in, depending on the Biden administration's definition of a recession. But the 2001 recession, there were stimulus checks sent out. The 2008 recession, stimulus checks were sent out. So looks like if a recession is official, once that announcement is made, could see another round of stimulus checks. I'm just curious, how much should it be? Should it be $2,000? Should it be less? Should it be more? Let me know your thoughts on that. When it comes to other money going out, so Social Security Supplemental Income 2022, $841 direct payments drops in days. Do you qualify? Well, if you're on SSI, then the maximum amount you could get is $841. And if you're on SSI, you know that on the first of the month is when the checks come. So on August 1st, those potentially up to $841 SSI payments are going out. And then two more states are sending free money as recession looms. Is inflation relief headed your way? So basically going over a few different states here. So we got California giving out the $350 checks, which is a maximum of $1,050 checks. Colorado giving out $400 cash back this summer, and then $800 for couples. Then we have Delaware giving out $300 per adult to help out with high cost of groceries and gas. Florida, $450 checks. That's brand new. That just came out maybe a few days ago, actually. Georgia giving out $500 checks. Hawaii giving out $300 checks, and if anyone makes more than $100,000, they get $100 checks. Idaho giving out $75 or 12% of your 2020 state taxes. Illinois giving out $50 checks or $100 checks per dependent, up to 3 dependents there. Indiana giving out $125 checks. Kentucky will get rebates up to $500 for singles, $1,000 checks for couples. Maine, $850 checks. Massachusetts giving out $250 checks. New Jersey, $500 checks. New Mexico, $250 checks, and then $500 checks for couples. Minnesota giving out one-time payments of $750 as a retroactive hazard pay. That program actually closed their deadline July 22nd. And then Oregon giving out $600 in Oregon, and then $250 in Virginia, $500 for married couples there. And yeah, then there's a bunch of pending ones too in New Hampshire, Kansas, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So that's the latest. Some of those you have to apply for. So if you heard your state and the amount of money, take a look and see if you're eligible for it, and then apply for that. When it comes to a big national program, how Democrats plan to overhaul taxes, climate spending, and healthcare before the midterms. Well, this is one of those things, the Inflation Reduction Act, that seems to be good news now, but unless it's passed and signed off by President Biden, it isn't really real. But if you want to get an idea of how you could benefit from this program, take a look at this video clip right here.
President Biden insists the Senate Democrats' massive new spending deal will ease pressure on the economy. They're calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. Today, the president described it as a historic agreement that will fight inflation, lower health care costs, and tackle climate change.
With this legislation, we're facing up to some of our biggest problems, and we're taking a giant step forward as a nation. This bill is far from perfect. It's a compromise. But it's often how progress is made, by compromises.
Well, as we reported, the deal was essentially dead until Senator Joe Manchin reversed course and threw his support behind it just last night. He had been holding out for weeks, but the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer still faces an uphill battle to pass this bill. CNBC coverage continues with our senior White House correspondent, Kayla Tausche. Kayla, break down the bill for us.
Well, Shep, the 11th hour deal reshapes energy, health, and tax policy, and it will likely be the last big bill passed before the midterms after the House passed the CHIPS bill today. The Inflation Reduction Act, as it's called, provides $385 billion in funding for clean energy. It subsidizes Affordable Care Act premiums for 3 years. It allows Medicare to negotiate drug prices, and it pays for it all mostly by establishing a 15% minimum tax on corporations. Democrats say it raises $739 billion and spends just more than half of that, netting $300 billion that they've pledged for deficit reduction. The Washington Post says Senator Manchin's colleagues launched an intervention this week, enlisting former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, who talked to Manchin in detail about why Democrats' proposed economic package, including its energy provisions, would not lead to higher prices. Today, I asked the administration whose input it received. I'm wondering where the White House sought assurances that the tenets of that legislation would in fact lower inflation.
I would refer you to Larry Summers on the conversation that they have. I know that he has been very supportive, clearly, of the act, Inflation Reduction Act. I'm just not going to go into any further details from that.
Behind closed doors today, the Senate Majority Leader told his caucus that the bill captured the party's longtime priorities and urged them to pass it before heading home for August. The Senator Schumer demurred when asked whether he'd secured the support of Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema, who had long opposed tax increases.
Look, the members are reviewing the text. It's a long text, 700 pages. I'm giving everyone time to review the text. In the meantime, we're continuing with the bird bath, and we expect to move forward next week.
The bill could see a vote next week, but Democrats currently don't have critical mass. Senator Patrick Leahy, recovering from hip surgery, has said he'd return to vote. Senators Durbin and Manchin currently out with COVID.
So that is the Inflation Reduction Act. Has a lot to it, but still, we're not there yet, so it's not worth it getting too excited. And if a recession is officially announced, maybe there could be more added to it. We don't know yet, but this is one of those things that President Biden needs to pass before the midterm elections in order for the Democrats to maintain their majority in Congress. If they don't pass it, it's just going to be looked at as a big failure, even if it may or may not help out Americans. They just want to get something under their belt that they passed, especially after over a year of negotiations. When it comes to the Manchin-Schumer deal, it clears major hurdle, but could face obstacles before reaching the finish line. It's actually a lot of obstacles before the finish line because the August recess is coming up. That means that Democrats and Republicans, basically Congress, are going on their recess, their vacation, their state work period. Basically, they don't have to do any work if they don't want to. They're free to go to their second or third vacation homes and do whatever they do while living in their bubble. But meanwhile, the rest of America is struggling to try to pay their bills and try to live a decent life. Take a look at what Democrat Ro Khanna has to say about this as he's being grilled on Fox News. And yeah, you want to take a look at this one.
All right, you heard about this congressional baseball game tonight, and some climate activists and protesters are expected to sort of make their presence known. Wonder what Ro Khanna thinks about that. The California Democrat sits on the House Oversight Committee, House Armed Services Committee. Good to see you, Congressman. It's been a while. Are you at the game tonight as either a player or a watcher?
I'm going to go as a fan. I used to grow up going to the Vet, watching Phillies games, and now I go to the Giants, so I'm excited about watching tonight.
Okay. These protesters are going to be there, climate activists and the like. They just got a huge gift, right, with this cobbled-together Schumer-Manchin deal that will address a lot of their concerns. So are they just wasting their time? What do you think?
Well, I think the activism around the country is one of the reasons we have the deal, and it's a great deal for the country. I mean, it's going to unleash trillions of private dollar spending. That's what people are missing. But the venture capital, the private sector is going to put trillions of dollars now because of the clean tech tax cuts into a renewable moonshot. And I think this is going to be transformative. We're going to be making this stuff in the United States. It's great. I hope the climate activists will celebrate some of what it could get done.
You know, spending kind of got us in this pickle. Are you concerned that, you know, putting it on warp speed here is just going to make things worse?
No, for two reasons, Neil. One, the trillions that I'm talking about is actually incentivizing the private sector to spend over the years. It's not government spending. Two, the person who's in the room cutting this deal is Joe Manchin, and he's been talking about inflation from day one. He's got provisions in this bill to lower the deficit. There are provisions in there to lower prescription drug costs. There are increases of taxes that are deflationary. Larry Summers has
wait a minute. You've got a lot of taxes in here on corporations, say the super wealthy and all of that. How is raising taxes on anyone in an environment like this ever beneficial?
Well, because it's anti-inflationary, because it lowers the deficit and it means that the Fed has to buy less.
Do you really think this is going to lower the deficit, Congressman?
It's $300 billion, as I understand the framework, is going to be put towards deficit reduction.
I could put a framework and say I'm going to lose, 10 pounds, and then people say, well, Neil, you need to lose 50. I guess what I'm saying here is this is not the first time a program has been introduced as paying for itself and then some. Not a one ever has. So what makes you think this is going to be different?
Two things, Neil. One, Larry Summers, who, as you would acknowledge, has been the biggest voice against inflation, says this bill is a good bill, that this is going to lower the deficit, it is going to lower inflation. And Joe Manchin would never sign on something that was inflationary. I mean, he has been unwilling to sign on to any of the bigger packages. And so I think this is a bill that is focused on lowering prescription drug costs, focusing on increasing taxes on corporations that aren't paying them, and making fundamental investments in clean technology.
All right, let's say it does all of that in an environment right now where inflation is still a problem, and the administration is making the same pitch that you just did there. But the administration's track record on everything from we're not in a recession to discovering we are, to inflation being transitory, to discovering that it's not. I mean, you can understand why the American people are saying, I don't know, right?
I get it. That's why I invoke Larry Summers, because he was not for some of the earlier spending. He has been correct about inflation, and he is saying that he has looked at this bill and he believes that this is the right economic policy. And
so
Joe
you're hooking all of
also
this on Larry
credible.
Summers, and then if he likes it, you like it. The fact of the matter is, it's a lot of spending with money we don't have. Of course, that's not new, but on top of the spending we've already seen, why sort of poke the beast here? I mean, inflation's been beastly.
But a lot of this is lowering costs, right? I mean, lowering medical costs and prescription drug costs, that by definition is lowering inflation.
If it ever comes to pass, right?
having investments in making things in America, that's better than having it shipped across the ocean. That's going to lower costs. Having tax revenue be put towards lowering deficits, that's going to mean less federal borrowing. That's going to lower costs. So this is not some big social spending bill.
Right. Well,
this is a very targeted bill.
We can maybe just see this differently, and I respect your opinion on a lot of things, Congressman, but we're going to be hearing from the president in a little under 2 minutes, and he is going to probably talk a little bit more about what you just did, but he is also, no doubt, going to have to address this GDP report that came out. As you know, it was negative. So technically, by the classic definition, we're in a recession. Do you agree with that we are officially in a recession?
Well, it's the economists who officially declared that. I will acknowledge that GDP growth has slowed and that we're in a difficult economic time. And I'll acknowledge that we have inflation and we've got the Fed
well, that's not what
increasing
I
interest rates.
It didn't just slow, it contracted, it went the other way. So it wasn't slowing, it was contracting. So we've had 2 back-to-back quarters of that. That is the classic, you're quite right, not the only definition of a recession. But do you, when you go back to your constituents, acknowledge, guys, we're in a recession, we're going to get out of it, but we're in a recession right now? What do you tell them?
You know, my constituents actually are more concerned about the gas prices, about food prices, about airlines getting canceled, about the baby shortage, food shortage. And so what I tell them is that we have to lower prices, and this bill that we're going to pass will help do that.
So they don't think we're
that, look,
sir, wait a minute, they don't think we're in a recession? I mean, you must have a very low
I think, you know, but ordinary folks, I think, are more concerned about the cost of living because the job numbers are still pretty good. And
indeed they are. You're right about that. I'm jumping on you, Congressman. The president is speaking right now.
So what are your thoughts there? Is this a good plan, a bad plan? Is this going to add to inflation? Is this going to help inflation? Is it going to reduce inflation, as the name of the act says? Let me know your thoughts on that. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Bella. This is the tip of the day, and what I was gonna say is just enjoy the moments right now. Don't be like maybe I'm not good for this. Just do it. Something, if you want to do it, then you can, because it's just a one-time thing, because you should always do something now than always later, because then it might not be the right time and it might not be the right ending. You might have like people or like.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your time and support. If you want to check out any of my other channels, you could click up here, and I'll see you in the next video. And hopefully you have a great weekend. Hopefully you're doing something fun. We're just going to do some more family time, maybe go to the beach, something like that. But yeah, click up here if you want to check out any of my other videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.